Okay, folks, morning. Thanks for coming to our event. I know this is the busy time of the year when everybody has Christmas responsibilities, trying to recover from the night before, prepare for the evening ahead. I know it could be. So, thank you for taking the time to attend. I'm going to speak on public procurement law because it's absolutely the corner piece of the crisis facing the country. And I'm going to speak about it through the lens of professional responsibility. Okay, I'm not going to get into a big legalistic explanation. It's got all kind of constitutional implications and so on. And I would start off by saying that in fact, the public procurement law that we are lobbying for and that we are fighting for is, in our opinion, the most important law in the country after the Constitution. It is literally transformative, which is why, you know, when you're telling a story, you have to talk about who, why, what, and when, which is why at this time, which is the when, the powers that be, which is the who, are actually fighting and conniving not to bring the law, which is the what is happening. Okay, we're in a crisis. We put the law together. It wasn't put together by the chief state solicitor or the chief parliamentary council or any of that. We, in the private sector, and I was one of the members of that group, wrote that law with the help of a senior legislative draftsperson. It cost us $600,000 to write it. That law is intended to control transactions in public money. That law is intended to stabilize this country. And that law is intended to bring order to a very disordered situation. $600,000 it cost us, and I could tell you, because there's a time to be frank, and this is the time. Christmas is for children. The Chambers of Commerce didn't want to put any money. We asked them. They didn't want to put any money. They had no money for that. The three of us put the money, myself and two colleagues put the money, the $600,000 to write the law. We wrote the law because it was unprecedented. It hasn't happened anywhere else in the globe. We wrote it and gave it to the government, a complete law, in December 2010. Because if we were waiting for them to write it, it might have still been in draft. That is the pathetic situation in the country with the question of professional responsibility. But not all professionals are irresponsible. Some are unresponsible, and we'll get to them just now. They don't even know they're supposed to be responsible. And what we are faced with now is a situation in which we have to battle on. And you battle on in an atmosphere of a competition between noise and silence. I'd invited my friend to be here today. She's not here. I wish she was, Rosemary Bell Antoine, who's now the principal of UE. Because throughout all of this, there's been a complete, utmost eloquent silence from UE. You would think it's got nothing to do with national development, or regional development, or law, or economics, or engineering. It is absolutely transformative. And I'm calling on, I'm seeing a few colleagues from UE here. I wouldn't call their names, because Rosemary was supposed to be in the hot seat, and she didn't come, okay. But you have to exercise and exhibit a sense of professional responsibility, colleagues. The Law Association, I've seen some of you all here. No names again. We don't want to embarrass our guests. The Law Association has maintained a total silence on the law. I tried many times. Nobody wanted to meet to discuss it. They don't even want to have a seminar about it or a meeting about it. Okay? It's not a matter of any interest. The accountants, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Trinidad and Tobago, we have our own professional body to mirror the ACCA in the UK. Incorporated since 1970. And you would think that the profession of chartered accountants, which is to do with governance and accountability for funds, public or private, would have a concern with it. And they don't want to meet either. There's no concern, as the older people would say. Okay? The Bankers Association, I know there's some bankers in the audience somewhere, hiding in the back maybe. The Bankers Association, they don't want to meet either. And we got to understand this. This is not just a personal thing about making a criticism of colleagues, because we have colleagues in all those places. We have colleagues in the banks. We have colleagues who are lawyers, dear friends. We have colleagues who are economists and accountants and all of that. Okay? Colleagues at UE. The reality is that you have to understand how grand corruption happens. Grand corruption is not about a movie on Netflix with anybody with a suitcase full of money. That is just a movie. Grand corruption, $10 million, $12 million, $15 million in a bribe, happens with the connivance and active assistance of professionals. It can only happen. It can only happen if professionals are actively involved in it. A lawyer, sometimes there's two lawyers or a team of lawyers, has to prepare papers. Those papers have to reflect a contract, a commission, an arrangement, a public-private partnership. That contract is used by the accountant in the accounts department to release the payment, because without the paperwork, they can't release it. And the banker getting the correct instructions from the accountant who has the correct position in the organization, backed by the correct paperwork. Remember, we all following the FIU. We all following all these rules. That's how the money gets out. There's a question of professional responsibility, and we have to demonstrate that. So there's been silence from UE, silence from the Law Association, silence from the accountants, silence from the bankers, and the band plays on. Okay? And let me just say that the exemptions that Minister Imbert, who's our current Minister of Finance, the exemptions that Minister Imbert granted in December 2020, the 8th of December 2020, I won't forget certain dates, you know. Although the rest of you all might be silent, I won't forget those dates. The 8th of December 2020. They granted exemptions for audit and accounting fees. So audit and accounting fees are no longer under the purview of the procurement regulator. They granted exemptions for legal fees. Remember that one? Vincent Nelson, 96 million, right? So no legal fees could be interrogated by the OPR. And they granted exemptions for bank and finance charges for government funding, which is a huge part of bank's business. Those of you who are aware of banking business and preparing the documentation. The organizations were already silent. When you receive exemptions and benefits of that kind, and that quantity and that quality, we could expect very little assistance for the beneficiaries of that kind of thing. We would continue fighting on. We would continue. Okay? Because that is where we are. Okay? We are where we are. And part of surveying, which I am a surveyor, we are all surveyors, is being able to measure where you are, take your bearings. How far north are we? How far east are we? What is the boundary? That's the profession we're in. The science of measurement. And I'm measuring for you all with some precision where we are. And the silence is telling. It's what in intellectual circles, Mr. Dukaran is here, he could help us. Ms. Marla Dukaran is also here. We call a lacune, a gap in the discourse that reveals the true center of the thing, the lacune. That's what we're talking about, these gaps revealed in the center of the thing. Because grand corruption cannot take place without the assistance and connivance of the lettered professionals. Okay? It's 100 people or less who've looted this country, you know, in the last 60 years. And it's not the nutsman in Woodford Square or the little fella selling oranges in the savannah. They didn't loot the country. It's less than 100 people who looted the whole country. And it's actually a select group of people defending those people all the time. Let us speak clearly. Some of us still do. I do. And I would do it to my last breath. It's a small number of professionals who will continue to defend those people. They prepare the documents. They sign the audits, the dodgy audits. They do the payments in the bank. Okay? And if they get to court, if they get to court, if some policeman is brave or stupid enough to arrest them, they will defend them to the last, up and down between here and London. Okay? And there's some people who don't defend them. I'm one of those who don't. I see a few friends here who don't defend them. And you're welcome. We're all welcome to have a coffee together. I want to change out of the general discourse about procurement. And I want to bring a focus in relation to our profession. Because one of the things we're dealing with in this question of anti-corruption work, procurement, white-collar crime, is a very inner question. The remarks so far have been external. It's a very inner question because it's dealing with the quality of a human being. You see, it's very easy to have a criticism of somebody who belongs to the other group, another race, a different political party. The people across the street, the people down the road, the people in Caroni, the people in Mova. When it's a different group of people, it's very easy to be critical and to see what is wrong. They should do this and they shouldn't do that and the police should hold them and so on and so on. That's easy. And we're not going to get anywhere by doing what's easy. The only way you make progress is by doing things that are not easy. And the difficulty we have will be, in fact, dealing with people who are not in another group, they're in our group. What about when it's somebody who's in your group? What about when it's somebody who's in class with you? What about when it's somebody who's sleeping in the same bed with, literally and metaphorically? What about when it's somebody you're eating from the same pot, or you're a partner in the same firm, or you belong to the same fraternity, you're in the same batch, you're in UE together, you did the ACCA together, you did your bar together. What about that? Do you know what to do then? And if the answer is you're not sure and you don't know, and you're hesitating, well then what I want to say to you is that you need to think again. Because when the various politicians who are in charge of the parties, it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, Dr. Rowley, Mr. Manning, Mr. Pandey, it doesn't matter. It's a principle I'm discussing. When the person in charge of a political party is being asked to make a decision to criticize or to stop someone who's doing the wrong thing, and we hear these things in the papers, I'm one of the people who speak about these things from time to time. When they're being called upon, deal with this, deal with that, and they don't deal with it, and we become frustrated. The reason they don't deal with it is because that is their person, the person in the cabinet. The person was in the party with them for 20 years. The person walked the long road with them. And if you have a problem dealing with somebody in your batch, that's the reason that they have a problem too. So we have to overcome this moral question. We have to overcome it. Okay? In relation to our profession, I'm going to talk specifically about the valuation profession for a few minutes to wrap up. In relation to our profession, we have an important part to play in this. The procurement law, of course, has a subtext about the disposal of public property. And you may not know, you may think that the disposal of public property is to do with real estate. So if the government is selling a property or Caroni is selling land and that sort of thing. Property, in the lawyer's lexicon, actually has two species. Okay, there's real property, which a normal person would call a real estate. A piece of land, a freehold, a leasehold, and so on. And then there's what lawyers will call personal property, which is all other types of property. Shares is personal property. Oil and gas rights is, yeah? So therefore, the FCB IPO, just to make one useful example, the FCB IPO would have been under the procurement law because it was personal property that the state was disposing of public property, yes? I'm just giving you all some perspectives on the thing, yep. And I want to say that when we do our valuation reports as a firm, preparing work, when we do our valuation reports, we actually make an effort to present our information as analyses based on comparable evidence. The comparable evidence is evidence of actual transactions, normally conducted at arm's length. Those of you who from time to time have the occasion to see valuations, you will be aware that most valuations nowadays include comparables. And I want to caution you, I'm being very intentional in my language, I want to caution you against the actual quality of the comparables included. If comparables included contain asking prices real estate agents' prices, those are considered to be the least reliable class of comparables. Okay? And they are to be almost routinely disregarded. Okay? Quality comparables, quality analysis gives quality advice. And in fact, we can get to the point where we do, is that for me? Sorry. We can get to the point where we do, where we give good advice to our clients, including for the disposal of public property. And thank you for your attention. And I'm making a call again in terms of professional responsibility. The bankers, the lawyers, the silent lawyers, the silent bankers, the silent accountants, the silent UE. Where is your professional responsibility? I call on you. So on that note, I thank you for your attention, and thanks.